Hello, MCU fans. Today is going to be my breakdown of the brand new Fantastic Four First Steps trailer. I loved it. Lots to discuss, so let's dive right in and see what we can find out. Don't forget, we have a February contest running all month long. Be subscribed or leave a comment. You could win a book or a steelbook. Best of luck. And we have a membership option with lots of cool perks, so you might check it out in case you're interested. All right, so there have been many attempts to bring the Fantastic Four to the big screen. There was the 1994 unreleased movie, there's the 2005 and 2007 versions, the 2015 version, that one was interesting, and of course we have John Krasinski in Multiverse of Madness playing Mr. Fantastic. But now it's time for Matt Shakman to get his chance. Of course, Shakman directed WandaVision, did a fantastic job with that, so I can't wait to see what he's going to do with Fantastic Four. So things actually started with a kickoff video, prepare for launch, and it was framed as though it was a Future Foundation presentation. Now, Future Foundation is in the comics. It's basically like a think tank created by Reed Richards, and as you can see, lots of people were in it. Dr. Doom's over on the far right, Spider-Man on the far left. I don't think they're all going to be appearing in the movie, obviously, but there will be some version of a Future Foundation, I'm sure, in the movie. So the kickoff video had lots of footage of the Saturn V rocket. Of course, that was constructed in the 60s, and it's what ultimately got us to the moon the very first time. And they showed lots of footage from the Saturn V museum, so definitely trying to get us in that feel of the 60s, because the movie is supposed to take place in the 60s, but seemingly in a different universe. So we finally do get to the live event before the trailer, and notice it was held actually underneath the Saturn V rocket. In comes the cast. They're all looking great. I love how they shared that they felt there was a great chemistry between them, basically like a family. But now it's time for the trailer, so they're ready to launch, and they press the big button, and off to the trailer. All right, so we start with the tour of the Baxter Building. And actually, it's Sue Storm giving the tour. Welcome to the Baxter Building, she says. I guess she's giving this tour to reporters, maybe. It's kind of hard to tell. But Reed says, we make it a point to do family dinner every week. And I love the kitchen. That looks really nice. He says, Sunday at 7 on the dot, no matter what, we're all here. So definitely this theme of family is very important in the movie. And they are, of course, Marvel's first family. So then we get the logo. Very cool, very stylistic for the movie. And then we see the outside of the Baxter Building, giant 4 on it. Obviously, this is a different universe because that building does not exist in the main MCU. And then we see Herbie, who is cooking dinner. And that's Ben Grimm asking him, how's the sauce coming? We'll get to Ben in a second, but let's talk briefly about Herbie. He's an acronym for Humanoid Experimental Robot B-Type Integrated Electronics. He first appeared in the cartoons in the 70s. It was obviously a Fantastic Four cartoon. They just didn't happen to have the rights to use the Human Torch, so they had to create their own character. But then he eventually made his way over to the comics. Here you can see introducing Herbie the robot. So it's pretty cool that he was introduced first in the cartoons and then came into the comics. And then we see the Thing. So he's testing Herbie's goulash to make sure it tastes good enough to eat for dinner. But yeah, let's talk about the Thing. So when you compare him to all of the other iterations of the Thing, man, he is by far the most comic accurate. I mean, he looks like he stepped right off the pages of the comic. I absolutely love it. But we also have to talk about this phone. What's going on back there? Supposedly this is kind of a futuristic time frame. That don't look futuristic. That's a landline. I have not seen one of those in ages. So it's kind of interesting that they have some elements we would have seen in the 60s and other things are more technologically advanced. So he's making sure everything tastes great. And of course, Reed and Sue are waiting. Come on, we want to eat. And then Ben says, okay, is this guy good or what? Referring to the cooking. But then he says, but I want to add a couple cloves of garlic. Not because it's not delicious. And look at Herbie's face. He's like, what? What? It's great. It's just great. Anyway, love the kitchen. And what is that thing, a refrigerator over on the left? That is a wicked looking refrigerator. So anyway, love the set design for all of this. In fact, speaking of set design, how about this room? So time to bring in the giant chalkboard, of course, Reed Richards, chalkboard, they go hand in hand. And then we got to talk about this, right? I mean, I'm sure you spotted some interesting things on this chalkboard, in particular, this spot right here. So if we blow this thing up, that certainly looks like a wormhole. So going in one end there, and he's got exit written on the other end. And I think the arrow pointing up in the lower right-hand corner says another universe. Really hard to tell, but if we brighten it a bit, I mean, that looks like another universe. Let me know your thoughts. But I think he's trying to figure out how to jump from one universe to another. The question, of course, is why? Why does he even know other universes exist, and why does he want to go to a different one? Very, very interesting. So I do think the whole idea of a wormhole slash black hole is very consistent because remember in the Marvels, Dar-Ben used the bangles to open a rift in space, but didn't mean for it to be this big of a rift. And notice the little black hole there that was forming. And then when it vanishes, now we have this tear between two different universes. So I think that's consistent with what Reed is trying to figure out, how you jump from one to the other. Now, at the comic conventions, they also showed a trailer, which unfortunately not all that footage is in this trailer. So I'm going to show a couple potato quality images here. But we have Reed working again on the chalkboard saying this equation not only confirms alternate dimensions, it suggests that parallel Earths exist on different dimensional planes. So assuming that's actually in the movie, then that is fascinating because he's saying parallel Earths on different dimensional planes, which kind of reminds me of the Beast in the Marvels, talking also about parallel realities. You're now in a reality parallel to your own. And of course, we have He Who Remains, who spoke about stacked universes, universes stacked on top of his own. So it's still unclear whether these are connected or whether these are actually separate from Loki's tree, but I'm really hoping the Fantastic Four movie answers that for us. And I also hope the movie brings up the idea of incursions. It's about time this comes back again. Remember in Multiverse of Madness, Reed Richards said an incursion occurs from the boundary between two universes erodes and they collide, destroying one or both entirely. I really hope we get to see an incursion, maybe, of the Fantastic Four's universe. And of course, Kang in Quantumania actually showed us how you can have an incursion. He says the other Kangs are playing with time like children. He forms a second universe out of his hands. He says, I saw their chaos, and then literally shows how their chaos was spreading across realities, universes colliding, endless incursions. Notice the timelines between the two different universes are touching until finally they end up destroying each other. And he says, I saw the multiverse and it was dying. So yeah, I really hope they tie all of this stuff together in Fantastic Four. That would be awesome. All right, so then we see them taking off on what appears to be their first mission. We hear T-5, and Reed Richards then says, before we went up the first time. So assuming this dialogue matches what we're seeing, then this is their first trip into space. What's weird to me is this technology does not look advanced. That is really strange, right? But then also, let's look at this patch. So unfortunately, this trailer did not show us the patch very clearly, but the comic convention trailers, which again, potato quality, but let's just see the patch. It says Richards, Grimm, and then Storm and Storm. Well, why is that important? Well, because later in the trailer, we're going to see a very different looking outfit. See, compare these two together. They both have the blue and white coloring, but they're definitely different outfits. In fact, the patch has changed to a 4. So clearly they have taken the name Fantastic Four at this point, instead of just putting their names on the patch. So I think we're seeing two different flights into space during this trailer. Also, we do see some uniforms earlier in the trailer that look more like the second outfits they were wearing versus these that are the first. All right, so then you got to wonder, is this the first or the second trip? Because this spaceship looks really advanced, but again, that tech didn't look that advanced during the takeoff. And if you think back to that whole launch party for this trailer, they were showing us Saturn V, trying to get us thinking about, real life, but also lower tech spaceships. And then this one looks very high tech. So I'm really curious what's going on here. But all right, so Reed is feeling pretty bad about the whole situation because he's saying before that first trip, you couldn't turn invisible. And of course, Sue is trying to console him because she can tell he's really distraught by what has happened from that first space mission. In fact, now here, they make you think, oh, this is the first space mission where they got their powers, right? But no, that's the outfits from a later trip. It's not the first trip. So I think this is actually their second trip in space and they already have their powers. And in fact, here we see Sue turning invisible, but I think that's because she already has those powers. And then here we see Reed looking out the window, obviously very concerned. But again, I think this is their second trip. So let me know your thoughts on this whole first trip, second trip thing. I'm definitely a little confused at this point, but I'm sure it'll become more clear when we get a later trailer. And then Reed starts talking about Ben, and it mentions how Ben wasn't a rock, basically, on that first trip, and now he is, and he's still trying to get used to his new rocky look. In fact, here we see him wearing his trench coat and hat, just like in the comics, whenever he wanted to go out and hopefully not be seen by anyone else. And then I think this is really cool. We get a real nice Halloween timeline hint here, because if we blow that up, That is obviously a fully carved jack-o'-lantern, so we're probably mid to late October. In whatever year, we've got to figure that out. But at least it seems an October time frame. And in fact, later in the trailer, we see a bunch of kids probably dressed up for Halloween as the Thing. So yeah, we're probably late October. And then we see that Ben is actually watching footage of their first trip into space. He's watching it on this TV here. Obviously, he hasn't turned Rocky yet. And Reed is saying he's the best pilot in the world. And he responds, yeah, best looking. But obviously now he's all Rocky. So he's really mourning the fact that he no longer looks that way. And again, this is definitely their first trip into space because they don't have the 4 on their outfit. And then one nice little Easter egg here. It says Kaplan's Sales Special. And Jeff Kaplan helped with the screenwriting for the movie. So that's awesome. And then finally, Reed mentions that Johnny never used to catch fire before they went into space. So we then see Johnny showing off his powers. Ben is ushering these people in the building to safety, but Johnny takes flight, and I really like the CGI for his powers. I think it's going to look awesome in the movie. Can't wait to see that. But now Sue is trying to console Reed and is saying, hey, look, Ben has always been a rock, as she's talking to Ben, and here we see Ben booking it down the street to go fight somebody. And Johnny is, well, Johnny, which, yep, he definitely seems like he's going to be crazy in this movie. In fact, here we see him doing something pretty ill-advised, right? He's just flying out of the atmosphere, and I guess is probably realizing, oh, I don't have any oxygen, and therefore I have no flame. And that look on his face where he's like, yeah, this won't end well. What's kind of wild to me, though, is he's wearing his regular clothes. So I guess they're fireproofed? I don't know. I can't wait to see how this scene plays out in the movie. And then Sue concludes by saying, basically, she's not going anywhere. She says, I am right here, which is funny because she can obviously turn invisible, but she's trying to console Reed. She's like, hey, I'm right here. So then we see her actually using her powers, which is awesome. I think her force fields are going to look really good in this movie. But a couple things I want to talk about here. So in the background, we have a movie, I guess. Maybe it's a play, but I've never heard of Sub-Zero Intel, so it's just another indication we're in a different universe. I think this is kind of wild. This looks like a above-ground transit system, like a train running above. But man, it ain't going to be running for a while because those posts have been badly damaged. And then, of course, we see the fantasticar back here in the background, which later in the trailer, we do see it in much better shape. And in fact, at the comic convention, where they first released all this footage, we see it actually flying. So it's clearly going to be flying in the movie, and that's going to be awesome. And then we see them looking out over the city at this very menacing cloud coming towards them. And immediately my thought was, oh no, please, not that cloud from Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Please no. Please give us a real Galactus. Thank goodness we do get a real Galactus. But first we have to talk about this guy. So who is he? I mean, obviously it's John Malkovich, but is he playing Red Ghost maybe with his super apes? I have a feeling we're going to get lots of Fantastic Four villains, but maybe just in short clips, but he might be one of the main ones. So that'll be cool. But then, speaking of Galactus, right? He has arrived. We see his silhouette looming over the city. Here we see his big old noggin, much, much bigger than the Statue of Liberty. He does have the ability in the comics to alter his size. So sometimes he's big enough to eat a planet. Other times he's small enough to step on the Statue of Liberty. So cannot wait to see him in the movie. Then in the Comic-Cons, there were also some footage, which unfortunately they didn't include in the trailer, so we're back to potato quality. But he seems to be looking in at Herbie. What is going on? At least now we know why he was able to do this, because he can shrink his size, but he's probably looking in the Baxter Building at this point. Here's another shot of him getting even closer, and then another shot of him looking in. So cannot wait to see Galactus. He is going to be amazing. But Sue sums it up really well. Whatever life throws at us, we'll face it together as a family. So that's awesome. Clearly the theme of family is going to be really strong throughout this movie. And then here we see them maybe being presented to the public for the very first time. Kind of hard to tell what's going on here, but maybe they're showing off their brand new outfits, which, by the way, the outfits are growing on me. So by the time the movie arrives, I think I'm going to be in love with them. Speaking of, cannot wait for this movie to arrive, right? So let me know your thoughts. What did you think about the trailer? How excited are you for July 25th? Is there anything I missed? Leave your comments because I love to read and respond to all of them. So don't forget, February contest, be a subscriber, leave a comment, win a book or a steelbook. And there's that membership option in case you're interested in that. And then I always love to mention the Discord. Here we are talking about the trailer. We have 1,900 members across the globe, conversations 24/7, and we would love for you to be part of it. So I will leave a pinned comment so you can join us. Also, if you don't mind, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already. You can check out more content, and we'll all continue to enjoy the ever-growing, the ever-changing Marvel Cinematic Universe.